So if you've seen the last few videos on this kitchen reno, I have been going through and trying to plaster for the first time. This wall here actually looks pretty good, but there's quite a few places where we can see quite an average plastering job. I don't know if the camera's really picking that up, but yeah, if we zoom in, yeah, you can see there's a few lines and dents through the plaster. Now, since this is the first time I've ever done plastering, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, and I'm really relying on using the sander and trying to sand back the walls as much as possible to try to make it smooth. I recently just picked up this Azito 18 volt drywall sander. I've actually got a separate video coming up in the future, and I spent more money than I should have buying a ton of Azito tools. So I've been testing a lot of Azito tools out for a video, but I'm praying that this drywall sander actually does a good job because my walls are depending on it. All right, so I'm gonna jump straight into it. I've got a dust bag here, and this is attached to the sander because unfortunately just a few days ago, my Festool vacuum decided to shit itself. I can't get that thing to work, and this room's gonna get quite dusty. So for the next bit, I'm just gonna throw the dust mask on, and we're just gonna try to get these walls as good as possible. Right here too, I don't know if I spoke about it much in any videos, but we've decided to do a big barn door coming through here instead of a swing door. So I did have to try to play around and plaster all around this opening. It was a bit of a challenge doing that for the first time. To be honest though, I am quite happy with how it's looking. Hopefully with a quick sand, it's gonna look awesome. The only problems are, and I think the camera's just picking it up, we do have a fair few bumps coming down this way. There's a few bigger bumps there. So I definitely hope we can get rid of all of those. And I don't think I spoke about this barn door because throughout this whole reno, I kept changing my mind if we're gonna do a barn door here or a swing door. Now obviously at this point, I have committed to putting the barn door across this opening, and it is gonna be a bit of an issue when we get to it. Because when we've got the barn door open, it's gonna slide either this way, which is gonna be an issue because we have the external door, which is gonna swing open. And that's gonna go through and actually hit that barn door. But then if we had the barn door slide open this way, we've got another doorway here as well, and that's gonna be blocking that entrance. But I was really set on putting the barn door in here, so I think what we're gonna do is have a barn door which slides towards this external door, and then I'm gonna have to put a door stop down on the ground so that when you open this door, it swings and stops about there, which I think is still more than enough room to walk in and out. I don't think it's gonna be an issue. We'll have to see how that goes when we get to it. For now though, I'm praying that this Azito sander can save me with these walls. All right, so we've gone through and I've done the first sand. Just then, I was using an 80 grit sand pad, and we've gone through a few of these as well. The 80 grit is a bit rough. I'm not sure what people normally would use, but I wanted to go quite rough on it because I did do a bit of an average job. And I'm blown away with how much better it looks already. What I'm gonna do though is we'll take the 80 grit off. I might switch to a 120. We'll quickly hit it with a 120, and then I wanna finish off the 240 to make these walls as smooth as possible. All done with sanding, and I'm actually so surprised with how good we got these walls. I learned the hard way that I should probably be wearing glasses while doing this, especially when I'm sanding overhead. To be honest though, I'm stoked with this finish. I wasn't expecting it to get as good as what it is right now. It's at the point that once I paint it, I've got a feeling I might not even notice where it's been plastered and stopped up. And that's what you expect with a good professional finish. I'm sure if you look closely, you'll notice a few things here and there, but I'm stoked with how good this is. All right, so I'm filthy right now. I'm gonna go and clean up, but the next thing we're looking at is gonna be doing these cornices. So we actually came across a small problem when I was going through and hanging these plaster sheets. And the plaster sheets are 1200 mil wide. So I put the first sheet up, maybe 10 mil off the ground. I've done the second sheet on top of it. And then after those two sheets, we've still got about a 40 mil gap at the top. So being an old house, the ceiling heights are different all over the place. So there's some areas where the walls are about 2,420 and a 55 mil cornice would work. But here we have about 35 mil from the ceiling plaster to the top of the wall plaster. This kitchen originally did have a 55 mil cornice going around. I think it's the most common cornice you see out there. The smaller the better, as it's not gonna stand out too much. Because I've got such a big gap, it's 35 mil there, but on the other side, we've got about 50 mil. And that gap is so big that I don't think that 55 mil cornice will work. So what I've actually had to do is go out of my way, and I've picked up a bunch of 75 mil cornice for the kitchen. And it does look massive, So I'm hoping it's not going to stand out too much and draw too much attention compared to what I have here. This is a 55mm cornice, and it's actually insane seeing the size difference of these two. Now, the reason I've got the 55mm cornice is that I'm going to be using those for the hallway. The rest of the house is 55mm, so I need to match these in with the rest of the house, but for the kitchen and the laundry, we're going to do 75mm cornice to cover up those gaps. All right, so I'm a bit nervous about this, so we are going to start in a smaller section. And what I want to do to start with is measure down 75mm, and then also measure across 75mm at the top. And we're just going to flick a couple lines. And these are just going to make sure that our cornice is dead straight when we install it. All right, so we'll measure the first one. It's a nice easy place to start with. And we've got about 1482. That's pretty tight. I don't know if it works better if you leave a gap or if you have them tight. We're going to put this one in tight though, and we'll see how we go. So that's 1482. And that's going to be long to long. All right, so the way we're going to cut these cornices is going to be with a cornice block. And this should make everything quite straightforward because what we've got is two angles here in a 45 and two in a 25. What I'm going to do, and bear with me because this is my first time using this, is I'm going to set the cornice in like that. Make sure that's hard down and that looks pretty good. And then with the handsaw, I'm going to hold it in place and just go through with the handsaw. But I'm just going to be following those little notches in the cornice block, and we can go through and cut this cornice. I'm just going to slide this all the way to the edge. That's hard down. All right, I think we're good to go. So I've cut through it. This is on me just having no idea what's going on. The saw doesn't actually go all the way down and cut the entire way through the cornice. This is where I'm not sure what we're doing. Am I meant to keep cutting? All right. I don't know if that's what we're meant to do. These little grooves in the side of the cornice block though, they don't go all the way down. So when my cornice is sitting in there, it's only cutting about 80% of the cornice, and the saw's stopping about there. So I've just gone through, I've cut through the cornice block, or the miter block, whatever you call it. We've gone all the way through. So we've got a cut in the cornice. Hopefully that was what we're meant to do. Now what we're going to do is hook over the edge, and let's mark 1482. Alright, cool. Alright, I just made a mistake that I'm guessing a lot of people make when they try to cut cornice the first time. And this is exactly the same as cutting cord or anything like that. And you've actually got to think about which way your material is before you're cutting it. So we've got this corner here, and you can see this is perfect because when it goes into that corner, the angle goes that way, and the back of the cornice actually goes out on the angle, so that back is going to match in and connect with the other cornice that goes into it. And what the mistake is that on the other side, we have cut the 45 in the right direction, but the saw has gone through that way instead of going through that way. I'm not too sure how we're looking with spares, so I'm going to leave this to the side. I'm hoping I can use this somewhere else. I'm going to let myself off on that mistake because I was thinking about too many different things at once. Now though, I'm going to be switched on, and I can't let that happen again because I don't think we've got enough cornice to get this done if I do that mistake again. So I have my cornice in like that, line up that miter box. All right, so if I cut it like that, and the saw goes down that way, that will be the same as this. That will be cutting into the material, and that's not what we want. So if I go this way, if I have that long point at the bottom, yeah, okay, that's gonna work. So I've got that long point at the bottom, and we're gonna cut it backwards. What I might actually do is I'm gonna get the saw, and I just wanna do a little notch on the bottom of the cornice block, and that's where I can match the long point up to. All right, so hopefully this helps. We've got a little groove in there. Box goes that way, cornice goes in like that. My groove is lined up on the bottom. I think we're good. This is actually confusing the hell out of me though. All right, thank God we've done this piece right. We can see if I hold it that way, you can see the cut going back on the 45 on both sides, which means when we get another piece to join up with it, they're going to match in, and this is the wrong piece. That looks good. They should back into each other like that, meaning that they're touching and the hard two at the back and then also at the front. I think this is going to be a long day working this all out and getting it on. First piece is ready though. Let's see how we go at actually connecting it. And just because this is the first one we're doing, I just want to double check that the measurements are right before we put the cornice cement on. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Awesome. Actually looks pretty good. And to keep stuff easy for myself, I do have a pre-mixed cornice cement. So we don't have to worry about mixing anything up. And I'm just gonna, yeah, cool. I'm just gonna open this up and we're just gonna, oh, it's actually quite firm. I'm just gonna spread, actually I don't know how thick I should be going, but a thick enough bead on either side of this cornice. So this cornice cement is gonna be the main thing holding the cornice in place. So I do wanna go thicker rather than thinner. I'm not sure the exact amount to put on, but I just wanna make sure we've gone over the top so that this definitely isn't gonna fall down over time and it is gonna stay there. Oh shit. All right, this is gonna get super messy. I'm gonna put it up there, just gonna wiggle it back and forth slightly. And I've just got a few screws on me and we're gonna screw the cornice in place. And these screws are just gonna help hold the cornice in place while the cornice cement dries. To be honest, flicking these lines is actually a really good idea. I almost didn't do it because I thought you'd put the cornice up and it was just gonna naturally find where it's meant to go. When I put the cornice in place though, I didn't have it in the exact right spot, and I could tell that because we got the blue line the entire way. So it definitely is a good idea to flick those lines, and that way you know your cornice is definitely in the corner exactly where it needs to be. And I've got myself a little cornice tool and I just want to go through straight away, and it's not doing the best job, but I want to clean up and get rid of all this excess cornice cement. Alright, there's the first one done. What I might do now is just make my way around, putting in the longest lengths first. That way if we do have any offcuts or any small pieces at the end, hopefully we can use those to do the smaller lengths going around the butler's pantry. I've also got myself a laser distance measurer, so if we butt that in there, it should get us a measurement so much easier than getting the tape out every single time. So I'm gonna click that. 2693, we'll just do it again to make sure we get the same reading. 2693, yeah, 2693, cool. All right, that's accurate. And we're just gonna repeat that same process and mark 75 mil either way. So I'm pretty sure, yep, we cut that way. Bam, that's gonna be the bottom, that's gonna be a long point. All right, and I think all I needed was that one mistake. I'm switched on now, I think I know what I'm doing. I don't wanna be too confident in case I do make another mistake, but I think I've got the hang of this now. Good, all right, that's that first one. All right, so we've got 2693. That's long point, we wanna go back that way. I'm pretty sure this is exactly what we need. Oh no, you're taking, wait. What have I just done? How have I done that wrong? Oh, I spun that box around. Oh shit. I spun the box around. I feel pretty dumb right now. All right, that's the second cornice we've done and the second one I've screwed up. I've gone through, we've had to use another cornice, definitely gonna be short now, but we've got the cut. I've done it right. And I spent a little bit of time thinking about how to do it. And now I think I've got a good system to work out which way to do the internals and external corners and which way the cornice has to be in the box to make it work. I'm a bit nervous to do this by myself. Hopefully we can get this in there all right. All right, she's tight. So push that in there. Oh, she's a little bit tight. Oh, my camera died yesterday while I was putting that cornice up, but we've got that one in place. I did this long stretch by myself and that was a nightmare. So I had to get my partner to give me a hand to get some of these longer ones up. So they're done now, and honestly, I've got the hang of it. I was saying yesterday how I thought I had the hang of cutting it, but it just takes a second or two to really think about what you're doing, and then it is quite simple after that. It's the same as cutting cord if you've ever done it before, but I'm just gonna jump straight back in now. We've got a few small pieces to go around the butler's pantry, and hopefully I can do a good job with these external corners. Alright, so the cornices are all done and they look alright from a distance. If we get up close to them, the corners aren't perfect. But I've gone through with that cornice cement, I've tried to fill it in, I've given everything a light sand back as well. So hopefully it's going to look all good once we get through to paint it. And that's what we're ready to do now. We're ready to prep the house and start getting everything ready to go through and paint. With the cornices, it kind of makes the room look a bit smaller. So what we're going to do is paint the walls, cornices and ceiling all the exact same color. And then that way those cornices shouldn't really stand out. They should blend in and it should make the room feel a bit bigger. Now we are going to go with white walls, which is pretty standard. In terms of what color yet, I haven't decided that. We're going to jump in, do the undercoat everywhere. And once the undercoat's done, then I'm going to work out the exact shade that we want to paint these walls. So there are a few things that I want to do before we start painting. One of them is go through and give the ceiling a very light sand, because we are going to be repainting the ceiling. I want to get rid of any old flaky paint or any dirt or anything on the roof. So we'll go through, we'll sand that. And same as the windowsill and the door jamb, I'm going to paint them the exact same color as the rest of the walls. So I'm going to go through, clean these up. We're going to sand them off. And even looking at the old paint job, is pretty flaky. Oh, that's coming off way too easy. Obviously they haven't done the best job of painting because this is just peeling off. And same as the doorway over here. It's a bit harder to see because there's a cream color paint underneath it. That paint is just absolutely flickering and peeling off as I run the chisel up it. Yeah, paint shouldn't be doing that. So I'm going to guess that when they went through and painted this door, they didn't sand it back before doing so. So the paint hasn't actually stuck on, and that's why it's so easy to get the chisel on here now and peel all this paint back. So I think this is going to be my first job for the day, to actually go through this doorway. And I can't explain how light I'm going with the chisel, but just the smallest amount of pressure, even rubbing my finger over it does a little bit, but even the smallest amount of pressure is just peeling all this paint off. So I'm just going to go through, we'll completely strip back this door and get this door ready to paint. And it looks like underneath this cream color, it looks like there's another coat of paint. So it seems like this door's been painted 3 different times, a different single color every single time. And if I go past that third coat of paint at the bottom, it looks like there's a nice timber finish behind it as well. I don't think we're going to be restoring that. All I want to do at this point is get all the bad paint out of the way, sand it up so the new paint's got something to stick to, and we're just going to have to paint it white. During the start of the renovation, I was actually pretty keen to get rid of the store and window and replace it with something new. Once we jumped into all the issues though with the termites and the job started dragging on and becoming more expensive, I was running out of time and then also the money to buy another door for in here. It would have looked great and it would have been awesome if we had a nice sliding door that went in there. Something with a black aluminium frame would have been sick. It also would have matched in with this window here. And this window's got that silver aluminium frame for the window. And what I want to do is go through and paint the windowsill to match the walls, but then I want to paint all of the aluminium black so it's got a really nice contrast. And when the kitchen's going to be done, there's going to be a lot of white. We're going to have white walls, white cabinets, and we've got some light coloured bench tops as well. So that black aluminium around the window is going to add some good contrast to it. And we've got a few other things in the kitchen too that should stand out in contrast. Like the sink we're using is going to be black. We've got a black fridge. I'm pretty sure the cooktop we've got is black as well, just to give that bit of contrast against all the white. Actually, another thing I've got to do before we start painting is take out all of these screws I put in the cornice. So when I was installing the cornice, we're putting these screws in, and that was just to hold it in place while that cornice cement dried. And it's been about 16 hours since I put the last cornice up. So that cornice cement's definitely dry now. It's gonna hold this in place. So I'm just gonna remove the screws and then just go through with a bit of filler and cover up those gaps. And for the filler, I'm using Sally's Rapid Fill. And the stuff is good because I can fill the holes, sand it back, and then paint over it within half an hour. All this prep is killing me. It feels like no matter what I do, there's always so many more steps we're gonna go through until we're ready to paint. And the worst thing is all the cabinets are sitting there. I just want to get the cabinets in, and it feels like it's going to take a full day this prep in this kitchen. So those cornices are done. I'm just going to get set up once again with my Izito drywall sander. And what do we have? That's 80. I might just chuck on, we'll chuck on a 120 grit, and we're just going to give the ceiling a very light sand in preparation to paint it. Normally when people go through and try to sand the ceilings, they're going to have a sander which is on a stick. So you can just stand on the ground and you have to climb up a ladder and hold it above your head. I don't have one of those. I don't think I need one, and I regret that decision. My shoulders are on fire after that, but I think we're pretty much done. I sanded the window sills, we sanded the plaster, patched the cornice, sanded the roof. I think all we have to do now is clean the walls, and then we can start painting. For that, I'm just going to start off with a broom, and because we sanded everywhere, there's probably going to be a lot of plaster dust just hanging onto the walls and the roof. And yeah, when I brush there, you can see all that dust come off that wall. So I might need to chuck the mask back on for this one, and I'll just go through, sweep the roof, sweep the walls, and we'll try and get most of the dust off before we get the sugar soap out. So the last thing I've got to do before we start painting is just clean down all the walls, especially the ceiling and all the window sills and everything that isn't new, because they're probably a bit dirty. So we do want to clean those down. But the plastered walls I'm also going to wipe down as well, just because even though we brush them down with the broom, I reckon they still have a bit of dust on them. So I'm going to go through, we've got sugar soap, and we're going to wipe down every single surface, clean everything up, and then at the end we'll go down with some dry cloths, dry everything off, and then we're finally ready to start painting. Alright, so I wiped out all the ceiling, and for the ceiling we did use the sugar soap. I realised pretty quickly though that it was a mistake to use the sugar soap on the walls, because the wet cloth actually started to activate with all the plaster in the corner, and then even the plaster sheets that haven't been painted, there's a few spots where they started to flake up. And I think the best way to do it is to keep these walls completely dry. I'm just going to go through with a dry cloth, and honestly that it's all brand new, we don't need to clean it. All I need to do with these walls is wipe down all that dust. So I've learned the hard way there. I'm just going to be using a dry cloth, wipe it all down, and I think most of the plaster dust is off this anyway from the broom, but we're just going to go through and wipe it all down anyway to be completely sure. I spent pretty much the entire day today going through and prepping the walls. I honestly thought it would take an hour or two and then I'd be straight into the painting. By the time we went through and got everything ready, the sun's about to go down now, and it's going to be a night shift of getting this paint on. So to start with, we've got the undercoat, and we're just going to go through with this and cover the walls, the window sills, the cornices, the roof, the ceiling, everything is just going to be covered in this. When we go through and actually choose a colour and do our 2 top coats afterwards, we're going to be covering everything that you're going to see. In terms of this wall here, for example, which is going to be behind cabinets, I'm not going to worry about going over that again. I at least want to seal the plaster and get an undercoat on it. And actually I'm looking at the wall here and there's a boot mark. I've just realised I've missed wiping down this section of the wall, so I'm going to do that. But what I was going to say is these sections here that will be covered, even with the splashback and the overhead cabinets, whatever's going on, we're just going to do the one coat. Just going to do the undercoat and only going to paint colour for where we're going to see. I'm going to try to do this without making a mess. Oh shit. That wasn't too bad. I think I saved that. That was perfect. There we go. So to paint these walls, I'm going to be using a roller for the most part. To start with though, we are just going to be using the brush and we're just going to cut into all the corners and all the tight places. Now normally when we're doing a new build, I'd probably go through and hang all the doors, do whatever architraves I can do before we do the cabinets and get all that trim done. So that when we paint, we're sealing everything up at the same time and we don't have to go through everything again at the end. The reason we're doing it differently this time though is because our cabinetry has arrived. We've got it sitting in the spare room, which is already filled with everything that's meant to go in the kitchen. So I'm just very eager to get the cabinets in. So we're going to go through, paint absolutely everything. Then once we put the cabinets in, oops, I'm dripping paint. But once we put the cabinets in, then I'll do all the pieces of trim, I'll install the doors, do what we have to do, and then we'll go over at the end and just paint those last few things. And talking about things being half done, you might be looking at this doorway here as well, which is obviously not completed. And this is just going to be an opening once the kitchen's done. There's going to be no door or anything in there. And I will go through and just square set around this and have it as a plastered opening. So the reason I haven't done it is that our temp kitchen is on the other side of this walkway, and I just want it to be sealed up when we do most of the work. So once the cabinets are in and most of the work's done, then we're going to open that up, plaster around here, and this just be another one of those jobs that we just patch up with paint at the end. So I'm just going to keep making my way around. I'm going to cut in everything in this kitchen. And while I'm doing this, I've got my partner on the roller behind me, and she's just going to go through the roller, make all the walls look pretty, hopefully do a better job than what I would do. And I'm hoping we can get this first coat done tonight. It has just gone 6 p.m. though, and I don't know about you, but I feel like neither of us are too good painters. I'm loving how good it looks already, just for that first coat of primer. We've done the walls, I've done all the cutting, obviously excluding the old door jambs. I'm going to do that soon with a smaller brush. The other thing I haven't done though is the ceilings. And the reason we haven't done the ceilings is that we're doing all the walls with this roller. And it's not too bad for the walls, but if I was using that for the roof, I'm going to be fully outstretched the entire time and it's going to kill my shoulder. So I did just go out and we got a little extendable stick. There we go, this is what I got. And what I can do is actually twist this on to the end of the roller. This is going to make my life so much easier. Awesome. So now I can go through, I've got the roller on the stick and we can do the entire ceiling, hopefully quite easily. The last thing we need the primer coat on is going to be the doors and the windows. And the door especially is going to be a bit interesting. How you'd normally paint a door is you'd completely take it off and just put it up to the side somewhere, go through and paint everything. Because I obviously need to paint this face, but if we open it, we're also going to paint the sides of it as well. But since we are living in this house doing a reno, I can't just take the door off and leave it off overnight. So what I'm going to do is just paint the door in place while it's still shut, and at a later time we can open the door, and I might leave it open for a day. I'll paint around the edges and hopefully it dries in time. But it's a bit frustrating as well because the old owners have gone through and just painted completely over the hinges, and I tried stripping it back and it came back a little bit, but I couldn't completely get the paint off. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just paint over the hinges again, otherwise it's going to have this patchy, flaky white paint on it. Alright, so we're almost done with this door and window. For now, I'm just doing everything with a paintbrush for the primer. When we go to do the 2 top coats, I'm going to get a mini roller and we'll just smooth everything out, just so it looks a little bit neater. What I just did though was open this window, and I was just going to very carefully go through and paint what I could paint. But we can see in this little corner here, don't know how I have not noticed this before, but when the old owners came through and painted all the window sills and everything on the outside, they've obviously hit that with a dark blue paint. And it's been like that for like over 3 years now. We open this window all the time, and it's just insane how I've never noticed that massive defect there. Whereas if I'm doing a job and I'm at the smallest mistake right now, I'm going to be killing myself for it. Yet you got a big mistake like that, and I haven't noticed it in all these years. At least now we can get to that. And I'm definitely going to cover that up straight away. Now with the windows slightly in place, I'm not going to be able to reach every single part that I need to paint, but I'm just going to do the primer coat for now anyway. And when we properly go through to do the top coats, I'm going to have to take this window out completely, same day that we do the door, and properly cover everywhere with paint. Awesome, there we go. Today took a lot longer than I was expecting, but we're done. That's the first coat of primer done everywhere. I'm gonna go to sleep now, let this dry, and then hopefully we can get a coat of paint on this tomorrow night. So I've left everything for about 24 hours and we've got the actual paint that we're going to be painting these walls with. When I was looking for the colour to paint the walls, I wasn't too worried. Every white looks the same to me, but the most popular white out there did seem a bit darker. It had a bit of a creamy tinge to it. And I decided to go for something a bit lighter just because the kitchen I'm in doesn't get a lot of natural light. So hopefully a lighter white will help bounce the light around the room a bit more, keep it a bit more vibrant. But we're going to get stuck into it now. I might start with the ceiling this time. I think that's a better course of action. So I'll go through to the first coat on the ceiling and yeah, hopefully get it all done tonight. We started painting quite late yesterday and I wanted to wait about 24 hours before we did the second coat. So the sun's about to go down now and we're going to be doing night shift again to paint all these walls. So instead of going through and just cutting in everywhere this time, I want to go through and just do the cornices first and then roll the roof. And then what I'll do is cut in 2 corners and then roll 1 section of wall. And I just want to keep cutting in where I'm going to roll straight away so that that paint that I've cut in is still wet and I can still smooth it out with a roller. Oh, I'm a bit nervous to see how this comes out, but you can just see there I sanded back the joint in the cornice because I thought we had it looking decently where you weren't going to notice it. But once we went over that joint with the primer, it stood out like a dog's breakfast. And I was actually worried it was going to stand out even with that light sand I did. I don't know if you can really see anything from that angle, but from where I am right now, I can barely see that joint anymore. So that's quite reassuring because after going through the primer, it made every small bump and imperfection stand out and you can see everything that was wrong with the wall. But it does look like once we go through with a proper coat of paint, it's covering everything up a bit more, which I'm super happy about. And lastly, we've just got the skylight here and I've taken the panel out so we don't get any paint on that, which makes it very easy. I could almost just hit this with a roller, but I'm just gonna go through, paint it with a brush first, and then once again, smooth everything out with that roller. And in case you haven't heard of this before, here's a quick tip on what to do with your brush when you're not using it. Obviously, I don't just wanna leave the paintbrush like this, because I'm gonna be on the roller for a little bit. And instead of wasting the time trying to clean this or submerge it in water, then try to dry it afterwards, I'm just gonna get some cling wrap. And we're just gonna wrap the brush up with cling wrap. And we just want to wrap it tight and seal all the ends of the brush to eliminate any oxygen getting in there. And then if no air gets into those brush bristles, the paint actually won't dry. So I could even leave it like this for a few days, but I'm just going to do a bit of cling wrap. We'll break that off. And now with that wrapped up, that paintbrush isn't going to dry, so when I'm ready for it again, I can just unwrap it and just get straight into it. I mentioned yesterday how handy this extension pole was to paint the ceiling, and it obviously does help me get a better reach on the ceiling, but the other thing it does is gives us a better job, because instead of only being able to roll where I could reach, I can now go through and roll this entire length with the one pass by if I wanted to. And just being able to go back and forth and get such a long reach helps spread the paint around a lot more, and it's going to make the final result look a lot neater. Alright, so I've just finished up the second coat and it's obviously looking a lot better now with the paint, but it's also got a lot of areas which aren't looking too good at all. There's a few joints in the cornices which I thought were covering up pretty well. They were looking good when I first hit them with the paint, but now that everything's dried, all the little dents and cracks and joins in the walls are starting to show a little bit more proudly. I knew it was going to happen. I'm not experienced with plastering, so I didn't do a good job with the plaster. Obviously didn't do a good job with the cornice. And here I am once again. I'm not a good painter, barely done any painting in my life. So when you get those 3 trades and throw them together, obviously it's not going to be a perfect job. Overall, standing back and looking at the kitchen, I'm pretty happy. It's awesome how it's turning out, but it's a bit annoying seeing those small little things that are always going to be here in the kitchen. Now, since I'm painting this early before doing any of the doors or doing any of the architraves, I will be going through and doing some more painting towards the end of the job. So what I think I might do is just keep painting for now. I'll get bulk of the walls done, and then at the end, if there's some really rough patches, I might just go through, sand a few things up, and we'll give it a bit of love at the end of the job to try and make it as good as we can. So I've finished up with that second coat of paint, And that second coat has actually made the world of difference. It looks great in here now, a lot better than what I was actually envisioning it to look like. But I still have so many areas to improve on with my plastering, painting, cornicing, all of that stuff. If anyone's watching this video and you are a plasterer or a painter, even different trades like a renderer, anything like that, and you're happy to be in front of camera, I'd actually love to do some videos working with people that know what they're doing and hopefully learn a few things as well. If anyone out there would love to do that, please reach out to me, send me a message, because I reckon that could be a lot of fun. For now though, we're finally ready to get stuck into this kitchen. It's been a long time coming, but for the next episode, I'm actually gonna build all the cabinets. We've got the bench tops, we've got everything here, so we can actually build this kitchen. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate you guys tuning in every single week to watch these videos. It means a lot. Obviously it helps out too with doing this kitchen reno, and I'll catch you guys in the next one when the kitchen's actually going in.